there's no right or wrong path. I think it's never too late. And as soon as you get your shit together eventually, then you have stories to tell and you have life experience. And I don't feel like it's a waste of time.
I would highly recommend the self-recording band because it's a very personalized service, and the roadmap is just, like, it's so well structured, it's very well laid out. I guarantee anyone that takes on the program, from when you start to when you finish, you'll be at a different level.
I've built a career. I have employees here. I work full-time at a studio. We mix hundreds of songs every year. Yes, but I don't have a bunch of Grammys and like platinum records or whatever.
Become the best version of yourself.
This is the Self-Recording Band Podcast, the show where we help you make exciting records on your own, wherever you are, DIY style. Let's go.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Recording Band Podcast. I am your host, Benedict Hein. If you are new to the show, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. If you already are a listener, welcome back. Always glad to have you. I'm a mixing engineer. I run a full-time mixing studio. We mix a lot of songs here at Outback Recordings, and all those lessons, insights, learnings from years and years of working on a lot of DIY projects, actually. We've put these into this format, into this podcast and this platform, so you can learn from that as well. We work with a lot of bands that record themselves, which means we need to guide them through the recording process, help them make better recordings so that we can do a better job mixing. And we also have a coaching program where we actually work one-on-one or in a group setting with people and help them not just record but also mix. So we've done that for a couple of years too. And on this podcast, we share all the things we learn from that process, and so you can benefit from that as well. This is both a video podcast and an audio podcast. So if you're discovering this on Spotify or Apple Music and you want to watch it, please go to YouTube, search for the Self-Recording Band, and you can watch this and see our, I don't know, beautiful or not so beautiful faces. I'll let you be the judge. And so today, this is an interview episode that I'm very excited about because, once again, I do this quite often and I love them. I'm here with one of our members of the Self-Recording Syndicate, our mentoring program, and his name is Fergal Nash. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today, Fergal. Welcome.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Fergal is a self-recording musician, songwriter, and guitar teacher. Also runs a home recording studio where he collaborates with artists and offers his audio services there. He's based in Ireland. You write and record your own music, right? As a solo artist, Fergal?
That's right, yeah.
Yep. It sounds like a full band. We're going to tell you where you can check out the music. It sounds like a full band, but it's basically all you, which is pretty exciting. And since we first met last year, I think it was in 2024, a lot has happened because you have improved your production and mixing skills quite a lot. Everything, basically, production, recording, editing, mixing, all of it. You've put in a ton of effort and work, and it's been really impressive. So it's about time to introduce you to our audience and talk a little bit about your journey, your music, what you're currently offering for artists, what you're up to. News, all that. So again, welcome, Fergal.
Brilliant. Yeah, great to be here, Benny. Thanks for having me on.
Perfect. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey as a musician? Like, what made you want to make music and then produce your own music in the first place? Like, there are many people who can play the guitar, but not everyone wants to record themselves. And like, how did you get into all of this?
Well, I would say going all the way back, I got a present of a guitar from my uncle when I was about 10 or 11, and that straight away got me into playing. And I got some guitar lessons here in my own house, which is where I live at the moment still, from a local man. And that got me going then with a few chords and a few songs. So that got my interest going in music. But it was really like, that was I was about maybe 9 or 10 then. It was when I was a bit older, when I went to secondary school, which is, I think they call it high school in America. That's when I really started getting into music, because I hooked up with some friends, one who was a friend from my primary school, and then two other brothers who were friends from a neighboring parish. And we got together and we formed a covers band really in the school. And it was the early 90s. It was the time when an awful lot was happening in the indie rock grunge genre. And obviously, like that year, I think 1991, a lot of big kind of rock albums came out. You had obviously Nevermind. You had, I think, Soundgarden had their Bad Motorfinger. I think you had Pearl Jam with 10. AC/DC, that was the first album I think I bought actually, was AC/DC, the one with Money Talks and Thunderstruck on it, The Razor's Edge, that was it.
Yes.
So it was a big year for that kind of music, and we were getting into that kind of music. Guns N' Roses was another big one.
Yeah.
I think maybe it was it that year? Yeah, I think that year Use Your Illusion came out. So
what an era.
what an era, absolutely. So we used to cover a lot of those bands, and that's when I really started trying to get better at music and trying to get better at the guitar, and started singing. We kind of shared the singing duties, but I used to sing a lot of the rock kind of songs, a lot of the kind of Guns N' Roses stuff, AC/DC stuff, and maybe when the other guys would sing the Nirvana stuff, that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
But that's what really got my appetite going for music, and it became a lifelong kind of a obsession really since then. So to continue on, we did some gigs locally, and we played some school concerts and that. But then, kind of towards the end of the school time, you know, we all went off to college, so the band kind of disbanded a little bit. We'd still kept in touch and played on and off, but in terms of a formal band, after secondary school, we kind of disbanded. So I went off then to Dublin. I knew I was interested in music, and I knew I wanted to work in music in some shape or form. So I did a sound engineering course in a private college in Dublin. And again, this was back in 1995. So it was really back in the kind of analog days still back then. So this course was very much focused on analog and the old reel-to-reels. And the analog tape and that, you know. So even in that course, I remember being taught how to manually edit and manually splice the tape.
Yes.
You know, And at the time, MIDI was just coming in, and like there was no real audio recording on computers. It was just the MIDI was recorded, and you know, you'd set up the MIDI with a sequencer and a keyboard, and they'd all be linked together.
Yeah.
So that's
that's actually pretty exciting. I had an old Atari computer back then, because my dad used to have a small studio in like late 80s, early 90s, just when shortly after or around the time I was born, basically. And then when I was a little kid, he gave me some of that stuff. And I remember in the early 90s, I had an Atari and a Korg M1 sequencer, like synthesizer thing, and a small like Yamaha mixer. And on the Atari there was a program called Notator, I think it was called. It was kind of, and you could record MIDI and sequence things and arrange things, but there was no real audio recording. Like hard drives were tiny, and there was like no way to do that. But I remember that even though I'm definitely digital, but like a digital native, but I still know that. And I also know how to edit tape to a degree, like at least a little bit. That's interesting. So you did some of that too. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was part of that course, because that's what was going on at the time, you know.
Yeah.
And Cubase at the time was just a sequencer program. It wasn't an audio recording program. Yeah. So and we did some live sound stuff as well. Learned a little bit about that. I was never as into the live as I was the studio, but I did a bit, and I learned a bit about that as well. So so that kind of continued the journey for me. But then I at the time I really wanted to be a studio engineer, and I applied to a lot of recording studios and sent off CVs and that, and I got a few replies, but there wasn't really that many jobs. So then I decided, okay, well, you know, I'm going to set up myself. So I bought some analog gear. Then there was a guy locally who was clearing out a studio he had, and he had an old analog disc, an 8-track reel-to-reel. He had a sequencer as well with, I can't remember the name of it now, but it had a floppy disk in it. He'd stick a floppy disk into it, to do the sequencing, And he had a few other bits. He was basically selling out he was basically selling a home studio because he was getting out of it. Yeah. So I think my dad obviously helped me pay for it. I think, I don't know, at the time was something like for like 600 Irish pounds at the time, which might be about 800 or 900 euros now. Yeah. He sold me the whole lot, cables, everything. So I set up then, and I just started getting more and more into it, and I started recording some local bands, some local artists.
Cool. Did you ever have a DAT recorder, like these VHS tapes style sort of thing? That was the 90s thing, basically. Almost everyone had a DAT recorder, and some kind of the Mackie 8-bus consoles were very popular in the 90s, that kind of setup. Yeah,
I did. That was kind of a bit later on, but I bought the ADAT. And the desk I had was the Soundcraft is a very famous one. It was a big blue one.
Yeah, the Soundcraft desks were great from that.
Yeah.
Like the old Soundcraft desks to
Yeah.
this day are really, really good.
Really good. Yeah. So but that wasn't the desk I actually bought off him. It was an older one. I bought that later on. But yeah, I mean, that just got me into it. I started recording a lot of local bands, and I was really, really getting into it. At the time, when I look back at it now, my recordings were okay, but they weren't. I didn't know. I hadn't enough practical experience, really. The course was
that's
good
the
and
thing.
everything, but it's like, you know yourself. It's only when you start doing it,
Yeah.
you kind of, you improve. So, I mean, the recordings I did at the time were okay, but I'm a lot better now, of course, because I've gained so much more knowledge about the process. But, yeah, so, and I'm sitting in that studio now to this day. Obviously, I've evolved with time, and now it's a digital studio, but I'm sitting in the exact same place. Everything's moved around and everything's different in the setup, but it's the same room all these years later.
Awesome. Yeah.
So that was kind of the recording side, but in tandem with that, and again, I was actually quite, I kind of saw that was the way I was going for a long time, for maybe about 10 years, that I wanted to be engineer. I was playing little bits of music, but I hadn't really focused on my songwriting and that kind of thing. But then I realized after about 10 years that I think I was heading towards about 30. And I just kind of started getting into, I was kind of thinking I had a lot of bits and pieces of recordings and ideas for songs on old, like small digital recorders and that, and bits and pieces of lyrics written down. But I'd never sat down and really started nailing songs, And again, kind of, just seeing some bands and the success they had with songwriting and that, even Oasis would have been a big one. And it just kind of gave me a kick up the backside. This would have been probably heading towards the mid to the later 90s. And I just, I was listening to good songs on the radio that I liked. I was like, God, I think I have it in me to write a few songs. I just need to apply myself. So it was at that stage then I started really getting into writing and recording my own songs.
Oh, wow.
And so that was going on for a while, and I was only doing demos for a long time. Demo CDs I was handing out to family and friends. No real official releases, And again, I was doing okay, but production-wise now, when I listen back to them, it was demo quality. I'm not going to claim it wasn't. But there were demos, I was just I was more focused on the songwriting in that stage. But then I started improving with my recording, getting better and better, and combining the two, because I was working on the songwriting, the arrangement, and the mixing, etc. So in 2013 then, and I was 37 at that stage. So like I was kind of a bit of a latecomer. Like these days now, you hear of artists like 23, 24, and they're on their third or fourth album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, crazy. Like even back in 2013, the internet and releasing music and streaming probably wasn't as big as it is now,
Yeah.
So
we were still in the kind of early 2000s was transitioning to that, or mid 2000s is when the downloading and streaming. First, it was like music downloads and Napster and that kind of thing. Then it transitioned to streaming. But I would say 2013 was still pretty early on. Like not everyone had Spotify yet and all these things.
Exactly.
And it existed and it was working well, but we were still transitioning to what it is now. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I recorded the album myself, and I got a local mastering engineer. His name is Richard Dowling, who did a great job mastering it. And I released it as a CD, and I think as a download as well. I don't think I streamed it, but I released it as a CD and as a download. And I had a launch gig in Dolan's, which is like a really renowned local live venue, and loads of people turned up, which was great. And it was just
awesome.
it was a brilliant experience. And I got some radio airplay out of it as well. I got some national airplay. There's a legendary Irish rock DJ called Dave Fanning, and he played a song off it, which was like I grew up listening to him in the evenings, and like to hear my style. Like he used to play these bands that I loved, like Nirvana and Guns N' Roses. Like he played those bands, and then like one night he played my song. It was like, that's like it's like a dream come true, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
when you're
absolutely.
an independent musician, to hear your song on the radio show you used to listen to, So so I did started doing a lot of gigging then, a lot of local, mainly in Ireland, but a lot of local venues in the Midwest of Ireland, And again, I have a kind of, we were talking about this earlier, I have a kind of an electric setup as well as an acoustic setup. And I use the Beat Buddy, which is like a drum pedal where you can start and stop beats. So my electric stuff kind of had a bit more kind of energy to it when I did it live. So then, yeah, I really just started getting into it. And then I started obviously learning about the whole social media side of things as well as time went on and became more and more prominent, you know? So then I started kind of thinking, okay, I got to get into the social media. I started filming my own videos, that kind of thing. And also then, and you know, this is like what we're doing now, and a big part of the self-recording band is starting to network online
Yeah.
because obviously network in person as well, go to open mics and that. But like there's a vast world out there that you can communicate now on the internet. So a lot of that kind of, you know, hooking up with people, other musicians, did a few collabs. Um, yeah, so kind of that's pretty much brought me to where I am today. I did another couple of albums after that one. I did an album the first album was called Take It Over. That was 2013.
Mhm.
Then 2015, I did an album called Pieces of Everything. 2020, I did an album called Golden Sky. And then 2023, I did an album called On a Constant Roll. And On a Constant Roll was my fourth one. That was the first time I worked with a producer. So I
Mhm.
worked with a producer called Martin John. He's in the UK. I came across him on one of the freelance websites. I think it was Upwork. And
Mhm.
he did a great job. And we communicated over like a lot of WhatsApp messages and that kind of thing. And I think I drove him mental with revisions, as you probably know all about.
It happens. It's part of the job, though. Like, I mean, if he does it like for a living, or if he does a lot of it, he's used to it. So,
Yeah. I'm not sure he was I know, to be honest, he was good about it, but yeah,
yeah,
a lot of revisions, but he did a
yeah.
great job. He did a great job, to be fair. And so I released that in 23, and that's got a good response. It's still up there. I did stream that one. So that
Okay,
one is on Spotify, and it's got quite a good response. And I got some good reviews and write-ups for that. And you know, again,
cool,
I've done some gigs in the back of that. Busking is another thing I do when the weather's good in Ireland. I get out in the streets.
cool, great. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
Because it's a good way to sell your physical merch as well,
Yes, yeah.
and a good way to meet people and people come up and have a chat in person. You know.
Also,
So
a good practice of, like, you know, getting over the fear that we all have, like when playing in front of people or publishing your music or whatever. There's like, this is where you can really practice that skill, you know, that because everyone has that fear of rejection or fear of putting ourselves out there, and I think that is a great way to just get used to playing for an audience, right?
absolutely, yes, definitely. And you know, it's a good way to practice your songs and rehearse them. And you know, you can make your mistakes when you're
Yeah.
busking because people are walking by. They're not too bothered. You know what I mean?
And
And
that's the
you
other thing. They're not there for like 2 hours and
no,
paid money for it. They're just, you know, if
yeah,
they like it, they
yeah,
they stay for a while, but then they move on. You can also maybe I've never done it, but I assume you can probably also test things a little bit, because you'll notice when you play something and people tend to stop and pay attention, it
yeah.
might tell you something about the
For
song or
sure,
whatever.
for
So
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, um, and like I like it because it gets me out of the house as well and out of the studio. You know, I think
yeah,
when you're in music and you're working at home studio, it's great and that, but you're kind of enclosed, as you know.
sure,
You're kind of alone. And the busking and gigging as well. But busking is kind of a thing you can kind of do once the weather is good, and you can go and set up your, you know, you don't have to book a time slot in a venue or any of that. You can just go out, and obviously there are certain restrictions in where you can play and that kind of thing, which I adhere to all the time. You know, and how loud you can be, and I watch all that. You know, we're lucky in my local city, Limerick City. You don't need a permit.
oh, that's awesome.
I'm sure it's the same in Germany. A lot of the big cities, you need a permit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
but you're lucky in Limerick here that I think once you're not like blocking any entrances, once you're not too loud, you know, you're not in any way kind of interfering with the public that are passing by or any of the businesses. You can do, I think, like 2 hours. You
oh
know,
wow, that's cool.
yeah,
I don't even know about the legal situation here,
yeah.
but I would have assumed that there must be some kind of permit, probably in bigger
Yeah,
cities,
in
but
bigger
not sure.
cities, yeah. There definitely is one in Dublin, Ireland, which is our
Hmm.
capital, but that would be a much bigger population.
Hmm.
But I actually find, like, even in some small towns, I'm kind of in the country a little bit. I'm maybe about 20K from the city. But in the small towns and villages, I play around here as well. And actually, sometimes you get more people coming up and having a chat because things are less hectic. Things are quieter, you know?
Yeah,
And so, like in the city, like people are always on the go and that. So people might throw in a few bob, but they mightn't stop and chat. But in the smaller towns, though, rurally, I find people come up, have a chat and ask you about your music. And they're more inclined then to buy the CDs and the T-shirts and things, you know?
yeah.
So, yeah, so we're nearly up to date now. So up until when I started, obviously last year, the self-recording band.
Yeah, so that means you had quite a, you had some experience. You've made a couple of records on your own, but then also with a producer. But first of all, there must have been something where you thought, well, I got to do it on my own, or I want to do it on my own next time again. And then probably it sounds like you weren't fully happy or satisfied yet with the quality that you got. I mean, we can always learn and improve, and it hopefully never stops, also for myself or other full-time people. But like, you probably were in a situation where, yes, you knew how to basically operate the gear, but the results were not quite there yet, right? At this moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in my last album, Martin did a great job. I've no complaints whatsoever about it. But I just thought that maybe there was another level I could get to with production. Just marginal, marginal. But I thought maybe, and also he wasn't really available to do much more with me because he does a lot of like corporate live work. He's like a wedding performer and DJ and that. And he was kind of getting out of the audio production side of things anyway.
So scheduling became a little difficult, which is very fair and normal. But it's just like when you do it on your own, you have a different level of flexibility, of course.
For sure.
So what was that the main thing that made you want to do it yourself? That you just more freedom, more flexibility, do it on your own terms, kind of thing. Or there's creative control, or I don't know. Like
yes, like you see, as we've discussed, I know how to lay down tracks. I have a fair idea. Now, I did learn from yourself as well in the course about better ways of getting good source tones and that kind of thing. But, I know the practicalities of setting up my guitar or setting up a vocal and recording it on a DAW. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have a fair idea about room acoustics, that kind of thing. I kind of know I knew a good bit about it, but I've obviously learned more from doing the course.
Sure.
So, my feeling was, yes, it would be great to go into a big studio, but they're quite expensive, you know. And I was kind of thinking, if I know how to do that side of it, well, then, like an online situation would probably work better for me, save me that expense, and invest it then, and maybe someone to help me with the mixing and the mastering and the production,
Yeah.
So what happened was I was looking for producers, and I went on to some of these freelance websites, and I had some to and fro with some producers, and the prices were quite high for like one song and that kind of thing, and I had some negotiations with some of them, but they didn't really come off. And I initially I was just thinking about doing one single that I wanted, and just really polish production on it, and they weren't just they didn't suit really me or them. That's the best way to describe it. So then I was going through my social media feed, and I saw your ad for the Self-Recording Band. I think maybe before I signed up, I think I'd briefly seen it before.
It was probably one of our guides that we advertised, like free download thing or something, right?
Something like that, yeah. And it had kind of stuck in my mind, but I hadn't got back to it. But then when these producer situations weren't really working out, and I knew I wanted to release that song, which eventually became It's Just the Way That I Live. I saw your ad then, and then I actually saw your video where you talked a bit about the course, and I liked the idea that it was working in tandem with people who had home studios and could lay down the tracks themselves. And then I liked the fact that what really grabbed my attention was this personal roadmap.
Yeah.
That, I knew there was obviously group elements to it as well with the group calls and that, but I really liked the kind of setup of, from start to finish, the whole process was kind of laid out. And then there was one-on-one help from yourself. That was really what caught my attention, because I felt that not only would I be able to hopefully get this song and other songs recorded to a fully professional level, that I would be able to learn more about mixing and mastering myself and recording. So that's what really grabbed my attention. And then I looked at like the offers you had and that kind of thing. And I looked at like, there was like a 6-month offer, and, and then I weighed up the finances of how much it was going to cost me, to work with yourselves versus a producer. And like the 6-month deal with yourself was like costing, it was working out as much better value for money than to hire one producer to do one song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you can use those skills over and over again. I mean,
Exactly.
I will say, and you know that, and it's not a secret. Of course, working one-on-one with someone like me for months cannot be very cheap either. Of course, that costs money, but compared to going to a studio for a couple of songs, it is absolutely an absolutely good deal in my opinion. And then also, if you can then apply those skills on your next record and the next record and the next record, it just gets more valuable over time, basically. And I have to say, I thank you for saying that about the roadmap and everything, because I have to say you have used this the way it's supposed to be done, and not everyone does that. And it just goes to show that you have a really great work ethic and that you want to improve and learn, and that there's no ego that gets in the way, because we can always get better, and we can always learn, and if we get feedback we need to apply it, because otherwise why would I even invest in a thing like that if I then don't do it, right? But you really you did something, sent it over, I listened to it, gave you feedback, and then oftentimes the same day or the next day, very quickly, you just did a revision, sent it over again, got feedback again, and it just kept going like that. And that's why you made a lot of progress. And I loved that, because you really put the work in. You didn't just watch a bunch of videos and do nothing with it. You put in the work and you asked for feedback, and then you applied the feedback. You never even once complained about anything, although I know it's hard. It's work, but it means something to you. It's important. And at the end of it, you had a couple of songs now that really, really sound great. And even the last ones after you left the program, that you did more or less finish completely on your own. I just mastered them as part of the package that you got. But even those mixes, I was like, yeah, that is obviously it has worked, because that stuff sounds cool. It really does, and it is a difference to where you started. So hats off to you for putting in the work, for getting that much better in half a year or so, which is not the case for everyone. And so yeah, and thank you for saying that, because the roadmap part is, I think, the big differentiator from just an online course, a standard video course. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, at times, of course, when you were suggesting changes, it was like, God, I have to go back and do this. But the thing is that, I'm a kind of all or nothing person. You know what I mean? I either invest in something and give it my all, or I don't. Do you know what I mean? No matter what I've done in my life.
Absolutely.
It's always been that way. When I did my MA in songwriting in university, I remember the course director saying, God, you're so committed. And I'm like, well, I came in here to do this MA. Yeah. You know what I mean? I was in my 40s doing it. I wasn't being forced by anyone. I was doing it because I wanted to do it. And I gave it everything I had, and I got a first-class honours. Yeah. I'm not boasting, but I just, I said, I'm here to do this. And it was the same when I took on your course. It was like, okay, obviously you can do, you helped me greatly. But the thing is, I knew that there's work that I have to do.
Absolutely.
Know, because obviously you have other students as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, and we're mixing a ton of songs.
And mixing, you have your own commercial business. I understood that.
Yeah. So let me ask you a quick question there, because just out of curiosity. Yeah. I'm the same way as you when it comes to when I invest in myself and want to learn something, that I just give it my all. I'm totally exactly like that. The funny thing is, though, and I don't know if it's the same for you, but have you been the same way back in school?
No.
No way. Same here. And I think the difference is when you decide what you want to learn and what is really important to you, and you do something that is meaningful to you, and that it's just a different thing versus if someone else makes you learn something that you don't at the time value that much or are not that much interested in. Sure. Because I was definitely not that type of student at school. Yeah. But later in life, I became a poster child student whenever I decide to learn something, right? So
for sure. No, definitely. I think, and sometimes, I don't know what it's like in Germany, but in Ireland, the education system, people have to pick their third, or teenagers have to pick their third level course, when they do their final high school exams or secondary school exams at the age of 17, 18, they suddenly, it's thrust upon them to almost decide what you want to do for the rest of your life. Yeah. And you're very, very young at that stage,
Nobody knows what they actually want to do.
It is difficult, And I ended up, I think I did, I did the sound engineering, but for a year before that, I did electrical engineering, and I hated it. I left it because I hated it. But my point being that, it's a difficult time. Now, I knew, I had it in the back of my mind, even at that stage, that music was the thing for me. But the problem with the youth was, obviously, then you're getting into your kind of late teens, early 20s, and then you're starting to go out with your friends, and then you're starting to, do the usual kind of young man things of, heading
Sure.
out for a few drinks with your friends, and you're eyeing the ladies and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And like I did a lot of that when I was younger. You know what I mean? And even though I wanted to do the music, I was often wrecked at the weekends for being out, and I wasn't applying myself. You know what I mean?
Exactly the same here.
Yeah, I wasn't applying myself.
Yeah.
But what happened was, by the time, remember, I was saying to you, like, I was 37 before I released an album, and it was about 30 when I really got into my own songwriting and that kind of thing. By that stage, I was finished with all that. Do you know what I mean? I was done with it.
Yes.
And it was like, Fergal, you're 30 now. Like, it's time to get this moving. And that's when I said, okay, you've known pretty much all, since you were a kid, that you want to do music in some capacity.
Yeah.
And that's when the focus came in. And like, I'm veering towards 50 now. I'm 49 this year, but
it's never too late, man.
Never
It's
never too late. But like the last 19 years now, I can look back and say, Fergal, like, you've given this a right go, and you're still at it. Success can be gauged at different levels, but I'm happy in my own head that up to now, for the past 19 years, I've really given this a go, and I'm getting rewards for it.
Yes. Yeah. And man, it's so relatable. Sometimes I feel like when you see these overachievers that are whatever hit their goals at like 25 or something, and I'm like, sometimes I think, well, I've lost some years probably because I was pretty much the same as that you just described. And we were on tour with my band, and we were like sleeping on floors of venues and in the van and like touring all across Europe for like, it was fun and all that. And it definitely helped me later because of the people I met and all that. But at that moment, like, we were not making money. We were not doing anything for our careers really. But then again, I think, like, I don't know. I don't regret it because those are life experiences, and this is the stuff that now influences the art that I make and the stories I can tell and the people I've met. And I don't know. There's no right or wrong path. I think it's never too late. And as soon as you get your shit together eventually, like, as long as you do that, I think you're fine. And for some people that's at 20, for some it's at 30 or at 40. But as long as you get there eventually, then you have stories to tell and you have life experience. And I don't know. I don't feel like it's a waste of time. It was a waste of time. Yeah.
And I think another important thing for me is the kind of shift between when you're a teenager and the dream of being a famous rock star up on stage and, you know what I mean, signing autographs and all that, kind of that again, by the time you're 30, is kind of drifted away, and you're more focused on a career in music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I'd like to earn my living out of this.
Yeah.
And, it would be great to be, well, I don't know if it would be great to be hugely successful, international superstar, whatever. But the thing is that, like, only a tiny percentage of people get into music, get to that level, or get the breaks even to get to that level. But there's huge opportunities, particularly now with the internet, to earn your living through music in many different ways. You know what I mean? So that's where my focus shifted. Obviously, I want to promote myself as an artist, and I still do. But then I started looking at other things like the audio production and the teaching. Like, teaching has been a huge thing for me. It's really started bringing up good revenue, guitar teaching. And I recently finished my London College of Music guitar grade 8 exam. I did all the grades all the way up, so I just completed that. So I know I have a grade 8. I'm a grade 8 acoustic guitar player and teacher. So again, these are the things you can do to build your career in music, while also doing the artist thing. There's nothing stopping you doing both.
No, exactly. And it might even be a good thing if you don't have the pressure on the artist side of things, where you can make a living doing some kind of music projects, but then you have this passion thing, your own art, where you have no rules and no, you can do whatever you want just because you don't depend on that. Because I've seen a lot of people who wanted to do the full-time musician thing and then quickly realized that if they want to make that work, maybe they cannot make it the kind of music that they wanted to make, or they felt a lot of pressure, and then they had writer's block issues, or it just didn't feel good to them anymore because it is a hobby and it's something that they're passionate about and they want to do it and they don't want to have to do it. So it might even be a good thing if you keep that a hobby and a passion, or maybe a side income, but not 100% depend on that. And that combination that you have going there, something I've seen work for a lot of people, where it's a little bit of, it's like teaching, music production, making your own music. Some people do sync licensing on top of that, or multiple different things. And then you have a couple of revenue streams, income streams. And even if one doesn't go well, you can compensate with another one. And they all go together somehow still. So I've seen this model quite a bit, and I think it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really been kind of the approach I've taken now for quite a number of years. And I'm starting to build a bit of a business here now. It's taken a while, but I'm getting more students in. Starting to get some. I've started pushing the recording studio a bit more.
Hmm.
I kind of learned from yourself in that actually. I did just a very short video ad, and I had some footage of some clients I've had in, and I've got that going, and I've had some inquiries. So, and even just today, I was putting up posters in the local town for the studio, and um, so yeah, I mean, and actually, I think this is something you've touched on in the course as well. Is like the business side of, you obviously know all about this, but the business side of running a studio. And trying to attract clients and trying to generate leads online. That's a big part of it. Trying to
Yes.
generate interest,
Yeah.
So again, that's another area I've learned a lot about and focused on, and generally learning more about business. You know,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. We even have an add-on for the program, the Studio Business Mastermind that we started, where we meet with a couple people in the program who are specifically interested in that. And so yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That eventually comes up. It just naturally happens. Initially, I just wanted to teach the music production thing, but it naturally happens that people who get good at this then think about, hey, maybe I can do this for others as well and collaborate and start my own studio thing.
Definitely, yeah. And what I'm learning more and more about business as I've been pushing this is how you interact with your customers and how much they enjoy working with you
Yeah.
is more important than what you're teaching them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That might
Man.
sound crazy to some people, but
Man.
it's really what will keep them coming in that door. And I say it to all my students when they come into my first class or any clients in the studio, I want you to enjoy coming in here and
Yeah.
working with me. You know what I mean?
100%
that
agreed.
That is the bedrock of business.
Yeah.
You know?
You want to know? You know what? The fact that you can deliver a great product or service or a result for them, that is assumed. I mean, that is, they come to you because they want that, but that is assumed. It would be very terrible if you couldn't do that but still charge money for it. The thing on top of that, the service you offer, how you communicate with them, that it's an enjoyable experience as well, and all that. That is really, like you said, what keeps them coming in, what gets them to refer people to you, and at the end of the day, if you have a great result, but the whole process was very painful and not enjoyable, and the people you worked with were mean to you, whatever, it just leaves a bad taste in their mouth. And it's just, no matter how good the result is, it just doesn't feel good. But if you make it a good experience and you really care about the people you work with, that is what makes a difference. Because there are a lot of people who can do what we do,
Yep.
but it's like not everyone treats the people exactly like that. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad you say that, because that's the right approach. And that will be what will differentiate you from a lot of people, and what will make sure that you win at the end of the day and achieve your goals. It is like that.
For sure. I mean, and I think the more you do that, actually, the better the product you'll produce, because you build this rapport with the people that you want.
Yes.
You want to make their song sound the way they want it to be. Or
Yes.
I've got a young lad coming into me, and he's only 17, and he's really, really good guitar player. The only issue I'm having with him, in terms of straining the guitar, he's better than me, but his timing and his phrasing need work,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm focusing on that side of it with him. He doesn't need,
Yeah.
I've done some scales with that, but he nearly knows them all. But I want to do it for him because he likes coming in here. We have this rapport, so I check with him, are you happy with what we're doing? And he says, yes. Do you feel you're progressing? Yes. And then a lot of the parents come and they wait outside. And I always go out and meet the parents, have a chat with them, and and they always seem happy. And communication is vital then. You know what I mean? Always try and reply to emails, always try and reply to WhatsApp messages as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And you build up this kind of a connection with your customers, that you're all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And-
And I mean,
yeah.
it makes you want to go to work so much more every day also. It's like, who wants to be in an environment where, you're kind of dreading, your clients, or there's some people, because of their own behavior, nobody's really happy, and then you don't want to go to work anymore. It's not exciting. But how much cooler is it, if everyone's just happy, excited to be here, everyone's looking forward to the next session or lesson. It makes you a better engineer and a better teacher. You enjoy going to work much more. And the worst thing that can happen is that you turn your hobby into a business only to find out that it's now a job that you hate. Like that would be the worst thing. And so a big part of it is just how you act and treat people, because that all comes back to you and it makes your life so much more enjoyable as well.
Definitely. You know, it's a two-way thing. And if you take that approach, you know, you've a good chance of doing well in this business. And it's, you know, as you know, and everyone knows, it's one of the toughest businesses there is, you know,
100%.
To generate consistent income. But like, take that approach, you know, obviously work on your product, of course, you know what I mean? And like, it's like going back to music as well, you know, in terms of everything that happens with your music career as an artist, the quality of the music is the bedrock of it, you know? So you need to work on that. But you know, with business and the business side of it, the human interaction part is nearly more important. I go that far.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So now almost a year later, or like, I don't know, 10 months later or so since we met, what do things look like now in terms of like, how do you feel about your skill level and the quality of your recordings and mixes? Are there any, you know, wins worth talking about where you feel like this definitely has improved, or certain aspects of it? I mean, definitely interested in just hearing your perspective, because I've said, when I listen to it, it's a night and day difference, and I could point out many things. But what's important is, how do you feel about that progress?
Oh, I feel it's way better. I feel that the 6 months in the program has really helped me, because I learned an awful lot about, you know, going back even a little further in the process at times in terms of source tones and things like that. That was probably an area I think we talked about at the start with me, where I was kind of, you know, even the acoustic guitars, I was plugging them into the interface, and you were saying, mic them, you'll get a better sound. And straight away I was getting better sound, you know. So like that step-by-step process that I went through with the self-recording program has greatly improved me. And in terms of the mixing and mastering as well, you know, things you were pointing out in my mixes in the feedback, do you know what I mean? Like there was things like little artifacts I was missing. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Just
yeah,
little
absolutely.
cuts maybe that you were hearing that I wasn't.
Yeah,
you know?
because you get too close to it, and it's also a very technical and a different way of analytical listening that you just can't have without the experience. So
yeah. And another big thing, I think I said this in the radio interview that I sent you, the drum sound, mixing drums. You know, like I really learned a lot. I can see yourself, and I think it's Thomas. Obviously, you have a big Thomas is a drummer, isn't he? And you've a big focus on drum production.
Yeah.
And you know, like making sure that the kit sounds open and things like that. I think in one of my mixes you said it's too compressed.
Yes.
So now, like, I think in the songs that I sent you a couple of weeks ago,
the
drums are much more.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So much better.
Yeah. So,
and drums are so important. Drums and vocals, honestly, like, even though you're a guitar player and I play guitar too and I love it, but honestly, if you have a weird guitar tone, you can get away with it and you can say it's like it's character, it's intentional, whatever. But if the drums suck or if the vocals are bad, it's just bad and everyone can tell. And if it's not, then it's immediately so much better. It's the groove, it was what makes us move to the music. That plus the vocal is everything. So
yes, yeah. And you know, even things like compression and that, using compression, not just for the sake of it, understanding why you're using it. Those kind of things. Again, I just kind of bang a compressor on before, and does that sound better? I think it's better. It'll do, you know, without thinking too much about, you know, checking my settings and my compressors, you know, the ratio, the attack, the release, a bit more focus on those kind of things. Just those little things. You know, editing the vocals, getting them tighter in time, tuning the vocals.
Yeah, big thing. Editing,
Yeah, like I really, really learned a lot about that on the program. With your feedback as well. Like even, you know, notes that were just slightly out that I wasn't hearing again that you were pointing out, that note's a bit flat. Yeah. You know, and I've been bringing it up and going, God, he was right. It sounds better now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then this fine line between like what needs to be corrected and what doesn't. And then when it's corrected, I don't want to, but we don't want to want it to sound corrected. Like it should sound natural and organic. And if you go too far, you hear artifacts. And so we had to dial it back a bit. And that kind of, until you get that balance right, that's a learning process too, because most people in the beginning are not tight enough, or not, unless you're exceptionally talented, which for most people is not true. And even the best singers in the world get their vocals edited. So it's not a secret. It's not something bad. But like, unless you are exceptionally talented, it will need some work. And so most people are not tight enough in terms of timing and intonation. But then they learn how to do it, and then they go way too far, and it sounds obviously tuned. And then you got to find that middle ground where it just sits right. And you went through that process and applied all the things over and over again, and then onto the doubles and harmonies and all that. And every time it just got better. So that was a big part of it.
And syncing the vocals as well. Syncing the doubles, syncing the harmony vocals. Again, I was kind of missing a little bits in terms of the synchronization that you were pointing out. You know what I mean? But one of those doubles, the one on the left, is just slightly late, and I wasn't hearing that, those kind of things. But then you hear it then in the end products, because the mistakes aren't there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's not distracting. You can fully focus on the song. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So what are some current projects that you working on, and what are your plans for the next few months, years? Like, is there any releases worth talking about right now, coming up, or already out, or any other projects that are exciting?
Well, the first song that we worked on, It's Just the Way That I Live, that's out now. That was released on the 31st of January.
Great.
So you can find out all about that in my socials. You can stream it on Spotify. I made a video and it's up on YouTube. Also, I've done some little shorts on I think Instagram and TikTok. I did a piano version of it. I did a live version of it, which I recorded last week, which I'm hoping to upload this week. So that song, and it's got some good reviews as well, which you can check out on my social media. And I think in one of the reviews, a comment was made that the production and mixing was very good. So that's the testament to Benny.
Man, you did most of it. So I'm totally that credit goes to you, and it's your vision and everything. And but thank you. I also heard this interview that you've sent me, the radio interview where they played a little bit of the song too. And that was really cool to hear also.
Yeah. That was nice. A nice combination to be talking about it and the music coming in and out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that song is out at the moment and doing well. I think the next single is probably going to be the one we did about the footballer. Yeah.
So can we talk about that, or shouldn't we? I don't know. I know you're a big fan, and you put that into a song, which I also think it's great storytelling and really cool concept.
Yes, yeah. I might leave it on the QT for the time being.
Yeah.
Because it's the release date is kind of up in the air and that, and it's. I think it's something that I don't think people will be expecting.
I think so. Yeah.
So I think maybe, obviously I'll be doing a bit of pre-promotion maybe a month before it, but up until then, I think I'll just keep it on the QT for the time being. Cool. I have family and friends that are aware of the song and the project, and you are obviously.
Yeah.
But in terms, there are some other songs we worked on which may be released as singles. The first thing I discovered might come out as a single, possibly maybe before the summer. There's a song called Not Enough Hours we did as well, which is kind of an acoustic ballad, which again, the way it is with your songs, I knew It's Just the Way That I Live was a single. Like that was the song before I came to yourselves that I knew I was releasing. And then obviously with the program, I said, whoa, with this time and with your feedback and everything, I can get 3 more songs down, which I did. And obviously you have the mastering part as well.
Yeah.
So I got an extra couple of songs down, which I mixed myself and you mastered. So I have 5 or 6 songs there now. And it's a question of kind of going through those. The one I mentioned is obviously going to be a single. Then there are 4 others, which, again, it's a question of kind of sifting through them and thinking about, is this a single? Because yourself, and any artist knows, some songs are singles and some are album tracks. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Or EP 100%. Tracks. So it's kind of going through those and see, well, will this be a single? Maybe it be on an EP? And trying to decide that moving forward,
sure.
Sure. So I'm hoping to get out and do a bit of busking now. The weather's starting to improve a bit in Ireland, so I'm hoping to get out and do a bit of busking. We have a local open mic night here in Limerick called the Acoustic Club, which I haven't really got to a whole lot this year, but I'm hoping to start to get into that and get up and play the new songs in front of people. So yeah, in terms of my artist kind of program, that would be the plan. In terms of my studio and my guitar teaching, I'm promoting those very, very much at the moment. I'm doing a deal on my studio. I think I'll mix and master a song for 150 euros. And I have that on my website. So I'm setting up a free trial online class as well. So the people can come and do a half-an-hour class with me over the Zoom, and I won't be charging. And if they're interested, fine. If they're not, fine.
Cool.
And just trying to try and push those 2 things as businesses, really. I did an online video for the studio where I showed some footage of clients being in here, and I do a piece to camera similar to your own one. So that's on the go. So yeah, moving forward into 2025, that's where I'm at in terms of my kind of artist career and then my business career.
Awesome. Thank you for the update. That all sounds exciting, and I'm very excited for you and happy for you that this is happening. Just so people know what you've been talking about when you said the thing about the masters, when people join the coaching program that we have, the one-on-one mentoring, then we also include 5 masters in this program, just because we've realized that a lot of people can, they get through the mixing stage, but then they kind of get stuck because mastering seems like this dark art or whatever. And you're so close to your own music then and to your own mixes. And so mastering can be quite challenging. And I didn't want that to stop people from releasing their songs. So I said, okay, if you can make it through at least 5 songs of mixing, then we'll take care of the mastering. And you have something release ready, and then after those you can worry about the mastering and learn that. But it's not something you should dive into right away at the beginning. There's a lot more to improve first, like you said, the source tones, editing, mixing, and all that. And so that we just removed that typical bottleneck, and that's what we've also done for you, of course. Cool. Now, you talked about the things you offer for people, like teaching. You're doing the deal now, the promo deal for the studio. You're setting up these free, I think it's guitar classes, probably, right? Guitar lessons online, and all these things you do. What would you tell someone? I always like to ask people this question. What would you tell someone who is on the fence of getting help with their music in some way, shape, or form? So it might be thinking about hiring a guitar teacher because they can't get better on their own anymore or not fast enough. Or it might be that they want to hire someone like you or myself to mix a song. Or they think about joining a mentoring program like ours. Whatever it is, like so many people have hit a plateau and they're wondering, is it worth now going out and getting help in some capacity, or should I just go at it alone until I eventually get there? Like, what would you tell someone on the fence there? Because you have done that quite a few times in your life, and you got help from the outside, applied it, and then also paid it forward. So just curious to hear your thoughts there, because I know that so many people could definitely, benefit from that, but just can't get over, this first sort of, they just don't take the plunge for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, help is always something I would advise at some stage in a person's musical life, because we all know we can't do it all on our own. It's too much, What I would say, I mean, if you, for instance, talking about young people starting off, I mean, first of all, I would say see where you're at yourself. You know what I mean? See how you're getting on. If you've got a guitar, or you're starting on piano, maybe look at a few YouTube tutorials and see whatever. But again, that's help anyway. You know what I mean? But just see where you're at. And like we talked again about the different age groups. You know what I mean? You've got younger kids starting off, then you've got like teenagers, then you've got people who are getting into adulthood and professional working life, and so like people are at different life stages. But as you say, music can be started at any stage of life, which is one of the great things about it. I would say, see where you're at and maybe take it as far as you can yourself in terms of improving your playing, learning maybe a little bit on audio production, mixing. The thing is that nowadays, you can download free software, or, like even if you buy an Apple Mac, there's GarageBand with it. And just kind of make an assessment of where you're at yourself. Okay?
Yeah.
And then kind of say, okay, this is where I'm at. And at that point, then I would say, kind of figure out in your mind where you want to go with your music. You know what I mean? I think that's really important, because like music is something that is so beneficial to us in our lives in so many ways. I mean, for example, you might have a person who likes doing music as a hobby. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Just as a pastime, who has a normal day job, but okay, they love music and they've always wanted to learn an instrument or whatever. And the thing about that is, if that's what you want out of music, then I would say, maybe look for some help if you need improvement in your playing, and that your piano playing, your guitar playing, maybe get some lessons then, someone like myself or whatever, to maybe bring that on, and that might be enough in terms of where you want to go with music. Yeah. You might just want to play in the evenings, pass away a couple of hours, learn a few of your favorite songs, sing them, and, even at that, with that and with phones, like you could record an acoustic version of a couple of your favorite songs and make up a quick CD, burn it on your computer and hand it out to family and friends. And, that might be as far as you
Yes,
want to go. And that's great. There's no
I love that.
level you have to get there to make it
No.
worthwhile,
I love that so much.
Yeah.
And I actually think it is one of the biggest, most important goals to have is the self-actualization. At the end of the day, in this kind of hierarchy of needs thing, this is the highest level. Like, if we have everything else taken care of and we have a roof over our heads and we have like something to eat and we are not in danger and all those things and we have a social life, the ultimate thing is like self-actualization. And it's not fame or anything like that. It's like doing something you really enjoy and, and that's it. And that's a great goal. Even if you never release a song, if it's just for yourself, that might be absolutely worth it.
Sure. Because it'll enhance your life.
Yeah.
Music helps your mental health. So if
Yes.
you only do it to that level as a hobby, it'll benefit all the other parts of your life.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. And
Yeah.
also, I love what you said about there is no level that you need to get to.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. If you take my example, yes, I'm like I might be further ahead than like or whatever you want to call it compared to a lot of people out there. I've built a career. I have employees here. I work full time at a studio. We mix hundreds of songs every year. Yes, but I mix primarily, not exclusively, but primarily for independent bands who, do their own music. They're not signed. They pay for it themselves. I don't have a bunch of Grammys and like platinum records or whatever. Yes, it's over the years I gathered millions of streams and all that, but it's not that I'm like working with super famous people all the time. And yet I was able to build a really, really, really good and fulfilling business. And I get to help so many artists every day. And I don't care if they get 5 streams or 5 million streams. If they are happy and they have something they're proud of, I'm happy too. And yes, we do the occasional bigger label project, but that's not the point. If my goal would be I have to be the next CLA and I have to have Grammys and platinum records, I would be frustrated all day. I would think like I'll never get anywhere and like, but just I don't have to be in the top 0.5% because who is there? It's totally fine for me to have achieved what I have achieved now, and if I can do better, awesome. But I still think that wherever you are, whatever your goal is, you can be that's an important goal. It means something to you, and it's cool that you have achieved that, and you can be proud of that. And there are so many different ways to either make money or to be happy with music. And there's no level that you need to get to, like you said. Totally fine.
Become the best version of yourself.
Yes.
We all compare ourselves at times. We've all done it, Oh God, I think he's a better guitar player than me. I think she's a better singer. We've all done it. What I would say about watching what other people are doing is, what can you learn from them?
Yes.
If somebody is successful doing music or whatever, in whatever way, whether they're a mixing engineer, whether they're an artist, whatever, one thing you can do is just maybe have a look at what they're doing and say, oh, that might be something worth trying for myself or whatever. Or even reach out to that person. Most people are so contactable now and say, have you any tips? And I always do that with myself because I'm a bit older now. And I'm always saying to young people, look, never be afraid to send me an email, to ring me, send me a WhatsApp if I can be of help. I just helped someone out there last week who just wanted a letter of recommendation for something. And I was delighted to do it because I know the person and I know that they're very committed to what they're doing. This particular girl is actually, she's kind of into the management side of music, and she was a lecturer in my MA course. And she's trying to get residency in Ireland. So she was looking for some letters of recommendation. And I was very happy to do that. I spent a couple of hours writing that letter for her. And, we just had contact today. And I said, listen, the best of luck with it. And she thanked me. So, like, don't be afraid to reach out. But getting back to the point about becoming the best version of yourself, like, it's not a competition. There's not a level you have to go to. But what you can do is, through learning from others and through seeing where you're at yourself and working on yourself, you can become a very good version of yourself. And there's always only one you. No matter who you are or what you're doing, there's only one you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The one thing any other person is doing, they can't be you, and you're the same. So it's a combination for me. Become the best version of yourself, and then, have a look at what other people are doing and maybe learn from that. What I would say is this. I talked about doing music as a hobby and getting to that level, and that's perfectly fine and it'll benefit your life. My advice would be, if you want to get to the next level, which would be commercially releasing songs, getting your songs on the radio, maybe looking at sync music opportunities. I think certainly if you're not at a professional level of mixing and mastering, I think that's when you have to start looking at that,
Yeah.
because if your music isn't at a professional enough level for radio play and for TV sync licensing and that, it just won't get played, or it won't, it has no chance of getting sync licensing.
Yes.
So if
Absolutely.
you're looking for a career in music, you probably have to step up your level from the hobby level, you know?
Yes.
So that's when then I would certainly start looking out for help, maybe a producer, and the thing is, you might go online and get a great producer for a certain price, but you might have a friend who's got a home studio who's
Yeah.
But then and also what I found in the early days when I was doing my first album was I was getting too overwhelmed with doing everything myself. It was just, it was just too
Yeah.
much. You know what I mean? You're mixing, you're mastering, you're recording, you're right. It always
Yeah. Like your song, not enough hours. Yeah.
yeah. But also psychologically, it becomes too straining. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even just the feedback, like the feedback with you on the TRSB course or whatever, or a friend who's doing your production, whatever. Even that, getting another voice and that, does take a bit of the weight off your shoulders. You almost feel like you're not just in this on your own.
Yeah.
So I would definitely think if you're looking towards a more semi-professional kind of a level with your artistry, that's when I would start looking at maybe, and if it's like if you had aspirations of becoming a professional session guitar player, for example, probably just, well, not probably, there's no doubt that just having your 4 chords probably is not going to be enough for that. You're going to
Yeah.
have to look at advancing your guitar. Do you know what I mean? So then
Yes.
maybe you want to maybe get some lessons with a professional guitarist. So I would say that would be the point where I would start reaching out for help when you want to go above the hobby to semi-professional or fully professional.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely love that. Or if the fully professional result is what you want so that you can feel good about your hobby, that's also true. Some people don't want to do it as a job, but they just want that level.
Right.
But whenever you want to take it up to that level, I fully agree. And all the opportunities you said, you will not get there with a subpar result, with a hobby result, like licensing and all that. It's just, there's no way. The bar is high these days.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And also, hugely important is networking. Network.
Yeah.
Get to know other musicians, get to know engineers, get to know producers. You know what I mean? Meet people at open mics, online networking. I can't emphasize that enough.
And networking is not what many people think it is. It's not you asking people all the time to get something out of them.
No,
it is what you put. You will get what you put in.
Absolutely.
So, and it goes both ways. And you are such a good example of that because, like you said, you are happy to help people. If you have the time and you can do it, and someone reaches out, you are happy to do that. And I've seen it myself because in the community that's part of our program, you always offered help and advice. You joined the group calls. You answered when somebody had a question or you had a suggestion or an idea of how you would approach it, and you were always helpful. And if you're that kind of person, you can also expect to get help when you have a question, and that's how networking works.
Absolutely.
And if there's reciprocity, and if you do good for others, it just goes both ways.
It definitely does. I mean, I found that's been hugely beneficial to me, even getting to know other local artists here where I live.
Yeah.
And, we be able to communicate with them and help each other out and that kind of thing with gigs and that, And again, if you're doing a gig or whatever, the more people you've helped, and it's not a thing that I focus on. But if you're helping people and you're doing a gig or something like that, there's more of a chance they'll come. And if they don't come, they don't come. And there's never a personal vendetta or anything against them. But there's more of a chance they'll be there if you've reached out to them and they know who you are and you've been helpful. I mean, that's nearly more important than whether they like your music or not. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I love all of this so much. Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. That's so cool. Yeah, so how can people contact you? I'm going to put all those links in the show notes, of course, and in the description of the YouTube version, but where should we send people?
Well, my first port of call is my own website, fergalnash.com. So you get all the details of my own artist career in terms of videos, links to Spotify, all that kind of thing is all there. All my social channels are all on there. So obviously I'm on Facebook, Instagram. In terms of my businesses, I have an account called Fergal Nash Music Ads, and that's where you generally find more information about my businesses in terms of the guitar teaching and the studio, and then my own Fergal Nash Facebook page, my more general music stuff, my artist stuff. Email fergalnash@gmail.com. anyone ever wants to hit me up anytime, be sure to do so. Yeah, I think everyone pretty much knows all the social channels now. I don't have to list them all out.
No,
you know.
Yeah, if it's on your website anyway, that's fine. And then they can just search your name on socials.
But like I said, anyone hit me up anytime. Always available.
Awesome. Yeah, do that. Fergal, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Thank you for trusting me on your journey with your music. I really, really enjoyed working with you. That's why I also wanted you to be on the podcast. And I wish you all the best with those upcoming releases and all the different things you're doing right now. And with music, it's very, very exciting and I hope we stay in touch. And
definitely,
I'd love to see where this is going to be in a year or two. You know.
And thank you very much for having me on today, Benny. And I thoroughly enjoyed the 6 months on the program. Again, you're talking about recommendations to people. I would say, if you have a good idea how to lay down your own tracks in your own home studio and you want help getting to that next level, I would highly recommend the Self-Recording Band, because it's a very personalized service, and the roadmap is just it's so well structured, it's very well laid out. And Benny, to your credit, you're always very quick with the feedback and everything. And I guarantee anyone that takes on the program, from when you start to when you finish, you'll be at a different level. Your music will be
if you put in the work.
Yeah, there is a work side, of course. You'll have to put in the work. I won't say that, but all I say is the encouragement is there. And one other thing I wanted to mention as well, Benny, is I found the playbooks and the online mixes and courses, which we have lifetime access to. Certainly the courses. Hugely beneficial, because the thing was, even if I wasn't interacting with you directly, I could always go to one of those if I needed to check something on compression or limiting or recording vocals. So that's another thing I would say to people is, you have this lifetime access to their online courses as well. It's part of the sign up. So I'd encourage it.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me.
Cheers.
All right. So everyone check out Fergal's website and what he's up to, and hit him up if you have questions or want to work with him. Fergal, thank you again for doing this today. And to you out there, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.
Thank you very much.
And I'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.